what? It's a great day. Come on, are you having a great day? I'm having a great day because I tell you what, God is moving. Do you see it? Do you see it? Okay, if you see it, then you're ready for the message. All right, are you ready? Okay, if you're ready, then repeat after me and say, I have ears to hear what the Spirit of the Lord is saying to me today. My heart is prepared to receive what the Spirit of the Lord is saying to me today. God is talking to all of us. He is moving. He is doing some amazing things in all of our lives. Come on. Moving to Sandusky. He is with me. Come on. God is moving to Sandusky with me. All right. I want you to understand that He really is moving in everyone's life. Reverend Connie pointed out the last time we were together, all the different people, the change that has been happening. Why? Because God is moving. And if we just look around and just look at each other, we can see that God is doing something. He is not just sitting still doing nothing. Things are happening. And we are growing, and we are becoming a people that God can trust with this city. That is what He is saying today. I can trust you with this city. Come on, do you hear that? That is what God has been doing in our lives, causing us to become a people He can trust with the people of this city. Now, we've been instructed to be impartial. Do you remember the instruction through prayer the last time we were together? We need to give everybody, no matter what they look like, no matter where they come from, no matter what their background is, it doesn't matter. Everyone gets the same opportunity to choose God. Okay? Do you remember the instruction? Walk 500 miles. Well, you know what? It might take a walk in 500 miles with somebody to get them to that place where they finally see something good. How long did it take you? Come on. Just saying. Now, usually when I do a message, I tend to pick up somewhere. I'll grab a hold of another message somebody preached, or prayer that somebody prayed, or something that somebody says, and God will just really speak to me on that, and I'll break it down and bring it all back to you. Well, that didn't really happen the same way this time. And so I'm like, God, what do you want to say to your people? And I got to tell you, it was really tough because we're moving. Come on. My family is moving from another city to this city, Sandusky, where God has ordained us to be. And we're moving in just a few days. And how many know, if you've moved any time recently, you know there's a lot of work that goes into moving. There's a lot of stuff that happens, a lot of things that have to be taken care of. And so needless to say, as I'm trying to hear from God, as I'm seeking His face on your behalf, there was a lot of distractions. My phone seemed to not shut up for quite a while. But the thing was, is through all of the distractions, I kept saying, God, you know what? I am committed to you, and I'm committed to your people no matter what's going on in my life. No matter how late I have to stay up or how early I need to get up when the phones are not going off. Whatever it's going to take, God, I want to hear from you for your people because I'm committed to you. Come on, how many are committed to the Lord? That was kind of weak. I said, how many are committed to the Lord? How many are committed to one another? Oh, that was way weak. That makes me a little concerned. If we're not committed to one another, then we're in trouble. Come on, I'm committed to you. And as I thought about that, I realized, you know what? God has committed this city to us. Now, one definition of committed is in trust. So God has entrusted this city to us. And this got me thinking. I'm doing all kinds of studying and looking at all these different verses and all this stuff as I'm thinking about committed and commitment and all the whatever. And I realized, you know what? We need to know how to keep His trust. If God is trusting us with this city, and that is why He is willing to bring people here, sheep in, that we better know how to keep it, how not to lose His trust. to where he would take the people away when they come. So how many want to know how to do that today? We're going to talk about that. So we're going to start in 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 20. I'm just reading one verse out of 1 Timothy here. And this is Paul talking to, so we got an apostle talking to a pastor, okay? Apostle Paul is talking to Pastor Timothy. He says, "O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called." Now, how many realize that there always is somebody that wants to argue doctrine? There's always somebody that wants to try to say, argue about whether there really is a God or no God, whether it's evolution, a big bang, or God creation. Somebody who wants to argue about whether the Messiah already came in Jesus Christ or not. There's always somebody that wants to argue another point of view. Okay? Well, so Apostle Paul is warning Timothy about this. He's saying they're going to try to argue with you, but I want you to avoid them because you need to keep, which is also means to watch, be on guard, to preserve, and to obey, okay, that which is committed to your trust. Something had been committed to Timothy's trust, and Apostle Paul's like, you need to obey it, keep it, watch over it, okay? Well, what was committed? The first thing I thought was people. And as I got reading through the scriptures and backed up, because this is chapter 6, and I backed up some, and I realized that's not what Apostle Paul was saying at all. He's talking about the Word. See, Timothy had been entrusted, committed the Word to lead the people in and to teach them. That was what he really had to guard. He had to watch over. He had to obey. And that is why he needed to avoid all those other arguments. Don't get any of that bad seed in your ground. You don't want any of that in there. You watch over that good seed, that incorruptible seed. You don't want corruption coming in and mixing with the incorruptible. Okay, he's saying watch over that word that that you've been entrusted with, that's committed, entrusted with that word. Okay, so God, before God can trust us with this city, he first had to trust us with his word. Do you understand that? He first had to try us. He had to prove us that we could be trusted with his word. That we would be able to teach people and lead people in the truth and not compromise it. Okay? So this is where we've come from. Now, I want you to understand, it seems like whenever God finds somebody, and if you look through the word, he finds somebody that he trusts with his word, okay, and with his ways. We're going to put those two together because that's, the commandments, the laws, instructions, all of it go together, right? That's God's word, his ways. When he finds a person he can entrust with that, then he says, okay, then I'm going to entrust my people with you. But oftentimes, they get their eyes on the wrong thing. And they end up looking at something else other than God and lose his trust. Okay? An example. Pretty much everybody has heard of King Solomon, right? All of you have heard of King Solomon. You online, I'm sure. I think just about everybody on the planet has heard of King Solomon and his vast treasure, and that he was considered to be one of the wisest men that ever lived. Correct? But see, Solomon, he started out really good with God. And God entrusted him with great wisdom. God gave it to him. He gave him great wealth. My goodness, it was amazing. But he gave him some instructions, meaning keep my commandments, do my word, lead my people right? But Solomon had a little problem. Actually, it was a big problem. He had a problem with the ladies. Okay? And in fact, in 1 Kings chapter 11 and verse 3, it actually talks about the fact that if these numbers are accurate, it's kind of scary. But it talks about and says that Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Now, most of you men are saying, I could barely handle my one wife. Think about 700 wives and 300 concubines. That is 1,000 ladies speaking into his life and having an influence over him. You understand? Those 1,000 different ladies caused him to get his eyes off of God and get his eyes on them, which in turn caused him to sin against God by worshiping other gods to please the women. He wanted to please them by bringing their gods into the kingdom. Okay, I want you to see that. So in that, he lost God's trust. God's like, I can't trust you with the kingdom anymore. I can't trust you with my people. So guess what? I'm going to cause a lot of problems in your life. And he sent some adversaries his way. Caused some problems. A lot of trouble for the kingdom. So one man who was entrusted to lead a nation lost that trust and now brought trouble to the nation. It's a big deal, right? But see, the thing is sometimes God says, well, you know what? I can't trust the king. Maybe I could trust the king's servant. Okay? Maybe I'll trust somebody with my word and my ways who's not on a throne already. We're going to look at that, and we're going to see what happens. Have you ever heard of Jeroboam? Turn with me to 1 Kings in chapter 11. We're going to read a little bit. And we're going to see what happens because Solomon lost the trust of God. And rebellion came. And chapter 11 and verse 26, it says, Then Solomon's servant Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, an Ephraimite from Zerida, whose mother's name was Zeruiah, a widow, also rebelled against the king. So now he's a servant, and he's saying, you know what? I'm going against the king too. All this trouble is coming that God sent. And this is what caused him to rebel against the king. Solomon had built the Millo, however you say that, and repaired the damages of the city of David, his father. The man Jeroboam was a mighty man of valor, and Solomon, seeing that the young man was industrious, made him the officer over the labor force of the house of Joseph. Now it happened at that time when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem that the prophet Ahiah and the Shilonite met him on the way, and he had clothed himself with a new garment, and the two were alone in a field. So now you get the picture. Jeroboam goes out of the city into a field, and he has a prophet with them. They're all by themselves. Okay? And this prophet has a new garment on. Then Ahiah, the prophet, took a hold of the new garment that was on him and tore it into 12 pieces. And he said to Jeroboam, Take for yourself 10 pieces, for thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, Behold, I will tear the kingdom out of the hand of Solomon and will give 10 tribes to you. So now God is saying, because Solomon lost my trust, I'm going to take 10 of his tribes away from him and give them to his servant. He says, But he shall have one tribe, meaning Solomon, for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. So God's like, I can't take it completely away from him because I already promised David. Okay, I already promised David he'd have somebody on the throne forever, and it had to be to get to Yeshua. You understand? God knows what he's doing. And he says, this is why though, because they have forsaken me and worship Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, and Milcom, the god of the people of the Ammon, and have not walked in my ways to do what is right in my eyes and keep my statutes and my judgments, as did his father David. However, I won't take the whole kingdom. Okay, God's like, I'm not going to take the whole kingdom out of his hand because, you know what, I already told David I wouldn't. But I'm going to take it out of his son's hands. I'm going to give you 10 tribes. And then he gets down to verse 38 and he says, 37, he says, So I will take you, and you will reign over all your heart's desires, and you shall be king over Israel. Then it shall be, if you heed all that I command you, walk in my ways, and do what is right in my sight. Instruction. You hear the instruction? Okay? You got to do what I say, walk in my ways, and do what is right in my sight, keeping my statutes, my commandments, as my servant David did. Then I will be with you and build for you an enduring house as I built for David, and will give Israel to you. So God's saying, you know what? I'm going to trust you with my word and my ways. And when I trust you with my word and my ways, then I'm going to trust you with my people. Okay? However, man, it's so typical. God trusts a man with his word and his ways, trusts him with his people, and then things start to happen, and the man gets his eyes off of God and on the people. Things happen. Let's take a look. Jeroboam's now king. Solomon has died, and now his son Rehoboam is king of Judah. Okay? He's king of Judah. Jeroboam is he's over the 10 tribes of Israel. Got it? We got the picture? So we get down into chapter 12 and verse 25, and it says, Then Jeroboam built Shechem in the mountains of Ephraim and dwelt there, and also he went out from there and built Peniel. And Jeroboam said in his heart, Now the kingdom may return to the house of David. He's looking around and saying, wait a minute. I have all this, but where are the people going to go worship? If these people go up to sacrifice in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, where he is not king over, okay, then the heart of the people will turn back to their Lord, Rehoboam, king of Judah, and they will kill me and go back to Rehoboam, king of Judah. So we'll stop here for a second. So right here, Jeroboam is making a decision. He is looking at the idea of, I like being a king over these people. But if they have to go over and worship in the city that I'm not king, they might decide to go be with that king. So what am I going to do to keep the people under me, to stay king? I'm going to have to please the people. I'm going to have to be a man pleaser. And so this is what he does. Therefore, the king asked advice, made 2 calves of gold, and said to the people, It is too much for you to go to Jerusalem. I'm going to make it easy for you. Come on, it's too hard to go through the kingdom of God that way. I'm going to make another way that's easier. Here are your gods, O Israel, which brought you up from the land of Egypt, and set up in Bethel. And he set one up in Bethel and the other one in Dan. Now this thing became a sin. Why? Because people began to go and worship. They began to go worship. But then he did something else. He made shrines in the high places and then made priests from every class of people, not just the tribe of Levi. Jeroboam ordained a feast on the 15th day of the 8th month, like the feast that was did at Bethel, sacrificing to the calves that he had made. At Bethel, he installed the priest of the high places which he had made. So now he makes priests out of just anybody. Doesn't matter who it is. Everybody can hear from God. And he puts them at the high places that's not where God's at. And says, you're the priest there. And I'm going to create my own feast. You know, because God has a feast that he set up, and they're doing that in Judah. They're doing that in Jerusalem. And in Judah. And because I want to please the people, and I want you to keep me as your king, I'll create another feast just for you. He'd set himself up as God in these people's eyes. Determined where and what they would worship, and when, and the feast of his own, and decided who would be the priest against God's instruction where he says, my priest shall come only from the tribe of Levi. Do you hear? So this man that God originally he entrusted with his word, and trusted with his ways, and trusted with his people, all of a sudden decided, I need to keep myself king, and because I have to keep myself king, I have to please the people. And God said, guess what? That's not the way I do things. I put you in this place. I'll take you out of it. And this is what happened. Chapter 14. We're almost done with the reading of this portion. Starting in verse 7, it says, Go tell Jeroboam, thus says the Lord God of Israel, because I exalted you from among the people and made you a ruler over my people Israel, and tore the kingdom away from the house of David and gave it to you, And yet you have not been as my servant David, who kept my commandments and who followed me with all of his heart to do only what is right in my eyes. But you have done more evil than all who were before you, for you have gone and made for yourself other gods and molded images to provoke me to anger, and have cast me behind your back. I mean, that was like outright rebellion, like Satan. I am greater than God. Cast him behind my back. Therefore, behold, I will bring disaster on the house of Jeroboam, will cut off from Jeroboam every male in Israel, bonded free. I will take away the remnant of the house of Jeroboam as one takes away refuse until it is all gone. The dogs shall eat whoever belongs to Jeroboam and dies in the city, and the birds of the air shall eat whoever dies in the field, for the Lord has spoken. Do you hear how angry God is? He's saying, I trusted you, and you totally turned your back on me in order to please the people. Well, that doesn't fly with me. Now your house is destroyed. There's not going to be nothing left of you. This is what I do with people who turn against me after I've given them and trusted them with my word and my people. Do you hear it? Now, I read this. I really wanted you to hear this because it happens so much. Time and time again, God trusts somebody with his word and his ways, trust him with their people, and they get their eyes off of God and on the people and turn from his ways and become people pleasers. The thing is that the only way to stay in position that God puts you in is to be a God pleaser. As long as you're a man pleaser, God will not allow you to be in a position of trust for him to trust you. He can't do it. So if you have been a man pleaser, I'm going to tell you right now, you know God hasn't trusted you with his word. He's not bringing people to you to share, that you could share his word with. He's not going to trust you at all with his word and his ways because he knows that you're going to twist it in order to please a man. He is looking for somebody who wants to please him only. Him only. This house, God said he has entrusted with this city, the people in this city, because we have been all about pleasing him. We have preached the word uncompromised in this place. Come on, anytime compromise tried to come in, it could not stay for very long. Do you understand? Compromise has always tried to come in, but it doesn't stay for long because as soon as people realize we won't compromise, they leave. Do you hear me today? So we haven't been very popular. People have left. People won't come because they know that there's a standard here that says we are after pleasing God. We're after pleasing God. So, but how do we continue in that pleasing God? Come on, this is how I want to end out. We're going to learn what it means to really be a God pleaser. Because you might say, well, okay, how have we been doing that? You're saying that we've been pleasing God. Well, what does that look like? Okay? And then, obviously the main thing is preaching the uncompromised word, but I'm going to get into 4 other aspects of what it means to please God. For those of you who have been men pleasers and not God pleasers, here is your answer today to learn how to be a God pleaser and turn away from being a man pleaser. Okay? So the first way we can actually find 1 Corinthians 10 and 1 through 5. Now, this is Apostle Paul talking, and he says, moreover, brethren, I do not want you to be unaware that all of our fathers were under the cloud, all passed through the sea, all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them. That rock was Christ. But with most of them, God was not well pleased, for their bodies were scattered in the wilderness. Now, we're going to take a moment here. All of them experienced God in the same way. I want you to hear this. They all experienced freedom out of bondage. God took all of them out of Egypt, all of them out of bondage. He caused them all to go through the Red Sea, a miracle. Come on, they witnessed God moving right before them. He fed them all in the wilderness. He didn't say, some of you don't get to eat and some of you do. They all experienced God. Do you understand? They all got his word given to them, his instructions, his commandments, his laws, every one of them. And yet it says most did not please him. Why? Because they refused to do what he said. They would not do, that's why they couldn't leave the wilderness. 40 years they wandered because they refused to do what God told them to do. They kept wanting to do things their own way. So the first thing in order to be a God pleaser is to obey him. You want to please God? Do what he says. Another example of this, and really the example I'm giving you is that it shows what God does when somebody obeys him. It really shows how he blesses people who of the obedience, okay? So we can see an example in Genesis 22. Abraham was told by God to take Isaac, his son, his only son of covenant, right? Ishmael was gone. He was his other son, but this was his son of covenant, the covenant son that he had with Sarah, their only son. He said, I want you to take him, and I want you to go to a place that I tell you, this mountain, and I'll tell you where to go, and I want you to kill him. Offer him up as a burnt offering to me. And Abraham obeys. In fact, he gets all the way to the point, I know most of you know this, he gets all the way to the point that Isaac is bound on the altar to sacrifice, and Abraham has a knife in his hand ready to kill his son, before God says, okay, I believe you're going to do it, so here's a ram instead, right? Okay, there's a lot of other symbolism here, but the point I want to make today is God saw Abraham's obedience, and this is what he said. He says in verse 18, in your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed because you have obeyed my voice. So many times people are like, why am I not blessed? Why am I not blessed? Why am I not blessed? Because you're not obeying. You're not obeying. You're not obeying. It pleases God when we obey him to the point that he says, now I want to bless you. Do you hear it today? We can find the second way to please God in Galatians chapter 1. And Apostle Paul he's dealing with the people who are listening to another gospel and turning away from God because of it. All right? So we're going to read verses 9 and 10. It says, as we have said before, so now I say again, if anyone preaches another gospel to you than the one you received, let him be accursed. For do I now persuade men or God? Or do I seek to please men? For if I still pleased men, I would not be a bondservant of Christ. Men pleasers will always preach another gospel because they want to please the man they're talking to. So they're going to twist it. They're going to cause it to come out a little bit different in order to get that person to like what they're saying. You understand? But the thing is, God pleasers know something. God pleasers preach the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, because we understand that the truth is good news without changing it. You don't have to change God's word to make it good news. Come on. It is good news that God has given us instructions for life, that when we live by his instructions, we have a better life. Do you understand we truly live better when you live by God's instructions? Why? Because you don't have to go through all the mess of doing it your own way. That makes it worse, right? And having to have a cleanup process. Come on. It is good news that the Father stretched out his own right arm and sent his Son to die for you that you may live today. You're not a walking zombie, right? Come on, you have life in you today. Because God had did this for us. He did that. That is good news. It is good news that now, because of the shed blood of Yeshua, we can come before the Father. We are reconciled with him, and we can have a relationship with him every single day. That is good news. It is good news that we no longer have to live in sin. In fact, we don't have to sin. But yet we know that if we do miss the mark in any way, we have an advocate for us. And we can be forgiven and cleansed. That is good news. And it is good news that God himself has given us his Spirit to lead us and guide us every single day. That's good news. And we don't have to change that to make it good news. We don't have to change this word. Come on. We don't have to change this, anything that's in this word to make it be good news. It already is. It is. However, the only people who really aren't going to want that good news, this good news, are the people who don't want to, they don't want to come out of sin. They want to stay in it. Or people who like to be where they are and they like to do things their own way and they don't want anybody telling them what to do. So they don't want instructions for life because they want to do life their own way. For them, it's not good news. They want another gospel. And guess what? In this city and in every city around this world, they can go anywhere and find another gospel. But God says in this city, there's only one place that I can trust to preach my word uncompromised. That's not going to preach another gospel to please the people, but they are God pleasers, and that is in this house. So, number 2 way to please God is to speak God's word without compromise. That is the second way. And now, if you've been preaching a watered-down gospel or another gospel, I encourage you today to stop it. Stop being a man-pleaser and come into this place of being a God-pleaser. That's the only way he's ever going to learn to trust you with what he has. So far, what did we find out? We found 2 ways to please God. First, obey him. Second, preach or speak his word uncompromised. Right? 2 more ways, and we're going to begin to wrap it all up, okay? So the third way we can find in Hebrews chapter 13. I'm going to read 15 and 16. I'm going to read it first out of the Complete Jewish Bible, and then I'm going to read it out of one more translation as well after that. It says, through him, meaning Yeshua, therefore let us offer God a sacrifice of praise continually, for this is the natural product of lips that acknowledge his name. How many of you, when you acknowledge Yahovah or you acknowledge Yeshua, praise comes? You can't help it when you recognize them moving in your life. When you see God moving in your life, what are you going to do? You're going to praise him. That's what they're saying here. It's natural. You can't help it when you recognize, you acknowledge him in your life. Okay? And he says, in verse 16, it says, but don't forget doing good and sharing with others, for with such sacrifices God is well pleased. So the third way to please God is to do good and share with others. Now, I want to read that verse 16 again, but I want to read it out of the Message because it reads it really good. So it says, make sure you don't take things for granted and go slack in working for the common good. Share with what you have with others. God takes particular pleasure in acts of worship, a different kind of sacrifice that take place in the kitchen and workplace and on the streets. See, that this gives you a better picture that it's not in the church building that God is saying to do good. I want you to hear it. Wherever we are, doesn't matter whether we're at work, whether we're out in the marketplace, wherever we are, we ought to be doing good and sharing with people, whether if it's God's word, whether it's something we have, or helping somebody out. Come on, how many know that sometimes actions speak way louder than words? You help somebody, and all of a sudden, somebody takes notice. My husband, who is a deacon in this place, got noticed by somebody who won't come to this church, but they took notice of him because he was given selflessly of himself to help other people in their new home. Somebody else thought, you know what, I like that man. He's not preaching at me, but he's preaching at me with his service. Do you understand? That is what God is looking for, a people who make him look good. When we are servants, when we help and we give and we do good, come on. Now, if somebody's a Christ rejecter, that's not what this is talking about. But when we go about doing good, God says, you're making me look good, and that pleases me. Because Too often, Christians get in this little thing where they keep all of God's goodness right inside the building, never show anybody else that God is a good God. And he says, how are they supposed to know that I'm good if you don't show them? Come on, make me look good, people. You want to make God look good? Then do good. Then do good. That pleases him. All right, so are you ready? The last one we're going to talk about today of how to please God. Remember, we need all these things because we need to be doing those in order to continue in keeping God's trust for this city, okay? So, if you haven't thought about this one yet, when you hear it, you're going to, oh, yeah, that's right, okay. So, Hebrews 11:6. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So the fourth way to please God is faith. Now, I want you to see, the writer of Hebrews goes on after this verse, and he talks about Noah and Abraham and Sarah. If you understand that, without faith, if Noah had not believed God, he would not have built the ark. If Abraham had not believed God, he would not have left his home country and went to a land he did not know for God's promise. Had Sarah not believed God, she would not have had Isaac. Well, what does it mean for you today? If you do not believe God, you will not obey him. If you do not believe God, you will not preach or teach or talk about his word uncompromised. If you do not believe God, you will not do good, you will not serve, you will not share with others, but you will remain in a selfish state. You understand, without faith, you will not do any of the other things that pleases God. It all comes back together. All of those things require you to believe God. Believe he is Yahovah, the one, the only true God, the creator of all things, the one who knows every single thing about you and loves you still. If you don't believe that, you won't do anything else to please him. Okay? Do you hear it today? Excuse me. I'm getting hot, and when I get hot, I cough. So, today, as we're finishing up, we have to decide that we're going to continue on, or if you haven't been, begin to be God pleasers and not man pleasers. And then he'll be able to continue to entrust us with this city. What I saw was that God was reminding us of this now because the sheep are coming. And this house is going to get full. But God wants us to remember that when that happens, the temptation will come to get our eyes off of pleasing him and start looking at the sheep and what they want to keep them here. Come on. And he's saying, don't do that. Because if you do that, I'll have to take them away. Keep your eyes on me and pleasing me, and you'll be able to keep the sheep. You understand? God's bringing them. He's using us to do it, but he's bringing them. We're not going out there and dragging in just anybody, because not just anybody is sheep. So God is bringing the sheep, and he's saying, if you want to keep the sheep, if you want me to keep trusting you, then keep pleasing me, and then I will. Today, where are your eyes? Who are you looking at? Are you looking at God, wanting with all your being to please him? Or are you looking at men and willing to compromise to get their attention, get man to glorify you? Who are you looking at? I'm excited because I know that God says, I've seen what you're doing and how you love me. You won't compromise. You're obeying me. You're doing good. See, if we weren't doing anything, the enemy wouldn't be trying so hard to take some people out. Just saying. We may not see the fruit of it yet, but God says it's right, it's coming. It's just about here. And I want you to be ready to keep your eyes focused on me so I can continue to trust you with my people in this city. But more importantly, so I can continue to trust you with my word. Come on, remember what I said. If he can't trust you with his word, he's not going to trust you with people. That's the way it is. Now, some of you might be, I'm finished. I'm just jabbering a little bit right now. But some of you may be thinking about, well, wait a minute. There's all kinds of church buildings out there that are growing like crazy. So if God's trusting us, then where are the people? I'm going to tell you something right now. Those church places that are growing, they're not being added to by God. He is not growing them. They're being added to by compromise. They are pleasing the people in order to get numbers in. But what's going to happen is God is going to cause all of that to fall because they're not his and they're not pleasing him. So today I think we're in a great place. If you're not, get there today. Make a decision. Make a choice to become a God pleaser. Amen? Amen. Are you good? All right. We're going to worship the Lord.